My name is Virginia Martin, and I'm a householder and an aerospace engineer. My husband and I have 6 children. It's a very busy household, as you can imagine. And in about 2010, because of the cancellation of the Constellation program, um, at NASA, I was laid off along with my company alone, which was a subcontractor, laid off close to 3,000 people. And that's just one of the contracting companies. So, not too surprising, also with a crash of oil and living in Houston, there weren't a lot of jobs available. And so I was home. Yeah. I was home and job hunting. I also went back to school for a while. I can say uh, absolutely wonderful things about the Texas unemployment agency. They sent me back to school. So because I had a 25-year hole in my resume because we raised 6 kids. So with a single income family, you do everything yourself, all your electrical work and plumbing and drywall. And I had a son, Joe, who had a tendency to punch holes in the wall. So by the time he was 12, he already knew how to do drywall repair because we made him fix his own holes. Anyway, I hope to post a series of videos on some of the projects that I'm working on currently. I actually went back to work part-time at Home Depot since there was nothing available in aerospace, and I must say I've really enjoyed myself. And every contractor I talk to and every customer I talk to, I learn something from. So the current project is for a bedroom that had horrible 1970s texturing on the wall. We have it on every single wall in the house. It's horrible. When you raise 6 kids and the walls are dirty, you can't clean them because they have texturing. So you paint them. And so the dirt gets cemented in, and then you paint them again and again. So in the second video of this series, I'm going to describe the closet that I'm converting into a built-in bookcase. Most of the work for this room that the closet is in is already completed. We started with textured walls, and my son Patrick was wonderful, and he textured. He took a scraper and he scraped the texturing off the walls, and it really does pop off like popcorn, even after having been multiply, painted lots and lots of times. The problem is that when you're done, you have walls that have moon craters in them. You don't have stuff that sticks out, but you definitely have holes. So the first thing that I did was prime the walls because you have a horrible surface to work with after it's been scraped. I used Zinsser cover stain, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the best primer in the world. It's good, chalky, thick primer, and it's oil-based. And once that was done, you have a good surface to work on, and I used smoothing plaster. So it took about 3 coats of smoothing plaster. In between, I would sand, but my husband came in one day and he said, "Why aren't you wet sanding?" And I said, "Actually, I've heard about it, but have never tried it." And the problem with sanding is you put all this stuff on the wall, and it's a drywall mud, and then you sand a lot of it off. It's very wasteful, not to mention horribly messy. So what I then did is, when it was about half dry, take a sanding sponge that's wet and wet sand it with some water in a bucket that's nearby, and you get it nice and smooth. And so instead of needing to do it 3 coats, I actually got by with 2 coats, and we got butter smooth walls. It's amazing. I then went to the only place left in our area of Houston here near NASA that still sells oil-based paints, and we used, once the texturing was completed, I primed it all with Zinsser again, and then went and purchased oil-based paint and it's a less than a semi-gloss. It's I think it's called eggshell, in a really pretty, you can kind of see it, a sort of a very pale steel blue. The reason I like the oil-based paints is they are hard as a rock, and you can crash, large people into it and, get stuff smeared on the wall, and it will just wipe off with a sponge. It's amazing stuff. And so I'm going to be sorry to see it phased out. And I understand that the new latex paints have qualities that approach those of oil-based paints, but they just don't haven't made it yet. So we have this walls are all completed. There'll be a later video over the weekend. My husband and I are going to be replacing a window in this room, so I hope to make a video of that. And then we've got baseboards down already here. There'll be another video on probably a lot of swearing and complaining because we're putting crown molding up. And my main next couple of videos will be on the closet that we are converting. Well, I'm converting with a little help from my daughter Grace into a built-in bookcase. So we will finally at last have storage for the probably more than 100 board games we have and at least that many card games. And they are all stored in my son Patrick's closet. He hasn't had a closet for years. And of course you go in there and you can't find anything because it's stacked higher than the moon. So we had a lot of fun. When I get to laying the shelves out, I'll tell you a little about how we selected the spacing for the shelves. It amounted to measuring the depth of a whole lot of boxes of games because we felt it was safe to stack maybe 3 games deep, but not more than that because then it gets too stressful on the boxes. And most of them are designed to be laid flat, not to be stacked on their end. Someday, a brilliant board game company will go back to the idea that oh darn, I won't be able to remember the name of the company right now, in the 70s that produced board games that were in bookcase format. They were designed to be stored vertically as books. So we loved those and bought tons of their games. And I think that's it for today. At least you have an idea of the projects we're doing, and I thought it might be helpful to put a video out there of, you know, a relatively normal house owner trying to do work on their own house, and that I'm 61. If I can do it, you can do it. And I find it really a lot of fun. I hope you do too and enjoy this series of videos. Bye-bye.